Yes, welcome to the Biz Communication Show. I'm your host, Bill Lampton, the Biz Communication Guy. And again, you and I have the opportunity to have a conversation with a business communication expert so that we can find tips and strategies for boosting our business. Welcome to the Biz Communication Show. Whether you're viewing on YouTube or you're listening on podcast. Our guest today is Brad Bonomo, a serial operator, advisor, and board member who founded Logic in 2009, based in Scottsdale, Arizona. Logic is a team of investors, mentors, operators, and former executives that work with family offices, entrepreneurs, founders, and capital groups to identify, grow, and or exit assets. I happened to meet Brad when he visited my clubhouse room that I host on Fridays with Trip Braden and Mary Amons, the communication corner. He's made some fine contributions there, and I know he will here today. Brad, welcome to the Biz Communication Show.
Thank you, Bill. Good morning. Thanks for having me today.
Delighted to. I know that you coach executives. That's one of your items that you mention as one of your services when you mention your profile on LinkedIn. And I'd like to know when you are dealing with executives, certainly you assess and identify their communication strengths and weaknesses. What would you say in dealing with a large number of executives over the years in close quarters, we might say? What might be a very common communication flaw that you come across that you need to provide guidance on?
Oh, that's a great question, Bill. Just earlier this week, I had a session. We came into this session wanting to talk about XYZ, and it totally took a right-hand turn for the better. And we got into asking questions. And it was such a engaging conversation because people were able to step out of themselves, look at things with a new perspective too. And you know how hard it is picking to go to dinner with one person, let alone sometimes 10 people. People want to go different places. It becomes complicated. Same things in business conversation and with leadership too. Everybody has an idea of how they want to express themselves, but sometimes they don't have enough time to truly do that correctly, or there isn't enough clarification for all the parties to understand each other. So one thing we discussed is being able to switch that mode and perspective from not just waiting to speak, but truly listening to understand, and not just listening to understand, but asking great clarifying questions so everybody in the room knows what everybody really wants to convey. And I think right there's so much opportunity to be gained there.
Well, of course, you're echoing Stephen Covey, his chapter 5, seek first to understand and then to be understood. And the way I've always looked at that, some people, when they first read that, maybe including me, would say, now, wait a minute. Why should I seek to understand somebody else? Why don't they try to understand me? However, somebody's got to take that initiative, don't they?
Certainly, and that's that role of that the leader can play so well. You have the opportunity, people are looking to you to kind of set the ground rules of that conversation, of that culture, of that tone. So the more people in positions of leadership can help facilitate and nurture that, I feel the higher probability that team's going to be more engaged, collaborative, and productive.
I'll share with you a an incident that happened to me quite a number of years ago, maybe 20 years ago. Well, a little more than that, because I've been an entrepreneur for 23 years. So during my management career, there was one time where I interviewed for a position in another organization, as people will often do. My wife and I met the CEO, had a little time with him, in fact, even shared dinner with him. And his first question was, this is your third visit to our town. What do you think about housing? And we said, well, we're probably will, as we told a realtor, we'll probably find an apartment first and then later on get into housing when we know the area pretty well. That was at the first of the meal. We had an hour, maybe hour and a half meal. At the end of the meal, he said, "What do you think you're going to do about housing here?" And there was a clear indication that he had only partially listened. He probably had pretended to listening, which, as you know, is one of the 5 steps, 5 levels of listening that Stephen Covey gives. So as we left dinner, he said, "We're very pleased with your visits here, and your offer will be at your hotel next morning waiting for you. It'll be there in writing." And before my wife and I even got ready for bed back in the hotel, we said, "We're going to tear up that offer. If this CEO wouldn't listen to us before we were hired, what makes anybody think he would listen to us after we were hired when we have maybe some very serious problems that we need his input on?" My guess is that you have run into situations very similar to that.
Absolutely. And that's such a great story there. And Covey's such a good example. But especially today in 2021 here, people want to be heard. They want to have purpose in their roles. And I think as a leader, you have to solicit that. You have to set the table in order to make psychological safety prevalent and to get more feedback and engagement. Because uh, an old chairman I used to know used to say, he owned a lot of restaurants. He said, if you want to build a great bus station at a restaurant, ask a busboy. The same thing about everybody in their role at an organization. Everybody has a unique perspective and understands their role in ways that other people don't. So if you can create and facilitate that psychological safety, if you can draw feedback in, if you can create a culture where everybody feels good about saying, hey, here's an opportunity. It's not just a problem, but it's a challenge and it's an opportunity to get better. And also being able to say, hey, this project has gone off track. This isn't ideal, but I want to let you know about that. Just fostering that environment to get people to think about different innovations, ideas, share, collaborate, adds so much value to the bottom line indirectly.
I like that about ask the busboy. One of the one of the true communication flaws that I observed during the 20 years I was in management was the sort of the silo effect of the top management team. I think of the company cafeteria. The top management team would come in there, and instead of mingling with other people, they sat with their own group, and they missed a grand opportunity. Every time that they came in from lunch, they could have scattered around. They could have sat with people who would never have an appointment with them, but they could ask them about their family and their interest and what they do on the weekend and discuss Georgia football and all those things. So I think you're hitting a very important point there, that ask the busboy. Uh, Anybody who doesn't get to the ground level of their organization misses, as you're saying, a wonderful source, not just of feedback, but of insight and information.
Yes, completely agree. And you talked about Georgia football and the relationships. And one thing we do with our clients is when they onboard new team members, first of all, it's a long interview process. It's we have gatekeepers, and we are very specific about who we let into our culture. Once they're there, their first few weeks, their first day starts with everything turnkey. The computer's ready. They have a signed card from everybody on their immediate team welcoming them. We take them out for lunch first day. And then a lot of the first week is establishing relationships. We schedule time between them and just about everybody they're going to be interfacing with, and most people in the organization. And the point of those meetings is simply to get to know each other. Who are you? Outside of work, how can we best work together? What's your background? And they're just icebreakers, 15, 30 minutes, but that builds the foundation. And we're teaching these people that they don't need to know everything, but now they know where to go to get answers. And it works so well. And once that relationship's there, it opens up all the other things that we were talking about as far as communication.
Brad, since we're talking about having an interest in people, I noticed with practically every business communication leader that I deal with that practically every one of them have an interest and a focus outside of their work. And it's nearly always something in the way of charitable organizations. You work with several. Tell us about the one called DYN Do It Yourself Now. What's that one?
Sure. Thanks for asking, Bill. So, DYN, or Discover Yourself Now, I was approached by a good friend of mine that I've known for over 20 years. We worked together way back when, and he's always been big about education and community. And he brought together some people, and it was originally the idea of some educators out here in Arizona, and they were very passionate about teaching financial literacy, critical thinking skills, real life skills that they felt may be lacking in the educational system in some areas. Uh, they came together as a passionate group, and they've created curricula, and it's so fun to watch too, because you have a lot of people who are college professors, elementary, middle school teachers working with executives, financial advisors, all in one room. So it's fun to see that come about. And we work with different school systems out here, and it's a fun project. We're collaborating with a lot of banks and financial institutions as far as community reinvestment. And it's needed here in Arizona and in the Southwest. So it's an exciting project. And the most fun part about it is just the passion, watching everybody care about it, then figure out, okay, how do we take this passion, put structure around it, and actually get it to the kids?
That bit about financial literacy, that's a great service there because in the uh, I guess a typical elementary and high schools going through that, uh, people really don't emerge from there knowing how to balance a checkbook or make an investment or maybe purchase a first home or a car. And you can have wonderful language and communication skills, but we need those financial guidelines as well. And so I commend you for that. Another service that you provide is helping organizations with teamwork. As we all know, during COVID, there has been vast separation, and we have not had the camaraderie of people coming together physically in groups and meetings. What have you helped teams do, organizations do, to keep the teamwork strong during all this unprecedented time of physical separation?
That's a great question. And that was such a challenging curveball we all went through together. Um, for us, we tried to keep the engagement going, and we had just switched to a more video friendly platform right before this happened. So the timing was great. And we used a lot of video. We tried to be as accommodating as possible, given all the crazy circumstances and schedules and everything going on in everybody's life, childcare, adapting to what we went through. And we also solicit a lot of feedback. I'm always big on feedback loops, not only with clients, but internal clients too, and our team. So we ask them a lot, what do you need? What can we do better to get through this together? And we had video happy hours. We established a culture committee to keep everybody engaged. Luckily, we had some remote workers already, so we kind of took that template and scaled that quite a bit. And then here in Arizona, we were lucky enough, the weather was great during the winter months. So we were able to do some things outdoors and still be able to see each other within those restrictions as well. So we just tried to approach it from a human aspect, solicited a lot of feedback, and tried to get together face to face as often as we could.
I think one of the tributes to our workforce is how so many people made the adjustments because many people had no technical familiarity before that, but they got mentors, they got coaches, including you, and it's a testament to the workforce that we were able to do that. We've got time for one more question quickly, Brad. I know that you speak to many corporate leaders. I know you've had many speaking engagements. And so give us a thumbnail of what you think are the keys to becoming an effective speaker, both in your preparation and your delivery. What are two or three of the high points you would give us that would help us with our speaking?
Well, that's something I'm always working on. I've never met somebody who is perfect on it, but I know one thing I had to work on, and I'm still working on myself too, is just tone, cadence, pace. And I think you, Bill, do an amazing job of that. Me, born a New Yorker, I'm used to being in a house with 18 people, drinking cups of coffee all day, talking over each other. So as I got older in my career, definitely one thing that I paid attention to was that tone and being able to pause and listen and give people a chance to finish their thoughts. I think that is big. Also, eye contact. Obviously, we're on a podcast, but the eyes definitely can facilitate a connection. So I think that eye contact there, and tone. You have to have energy. I think I'm Italian. I talk with my hands a little bit more, but it has to be engaging as well. And sometimes when I go out for an engagement, I think I'm going to just hit a home run, and sometimes I make mistakes, but you just have to roll through them. And sometimes where I'm not feeling well, I just got out travel. I have 3 hours sleep. I go out and I feel like I did really, really good. So I think just roll with the punches, that tone, cadence, engagement. I think all those things are important factors that I would recommend.
Excellent advice. And one thing I would add is we're also fortunate that we now have video to help us learn more about that, because we can have a coach who tells us what we're doing, but one of the comments I always make to my speech coaching clients is the camera doesn't lie. You might think I'm observing you wrong, but let's look at the camera. And it's so wonderful that we can work with a coach, or without a coach, we can record ourselves. We can become our own judges and critics and coaches. And the camera is just great. And everybody's got one who's got a smartphone. So we're in an age where we have many assets to help us. Brad, this has been a terrific conversation. I don't call it an interview, I call it a conversation, because that's what it's been. I know there are people who want to get in touch with you, so please give us your contact information.
Sure. The best way right now is to probably contact me via LinkedIn or Twitter. Just search my name, Brad Bonomo. Last name is B as in boy, O-N as in Nancy, O-M as in Mary O. Brad Bonomo. Thank you so much for having me today, Bill. Always a pleasure. And thank you for all you do.
I'm very happy we became acquainted a few minutes ago. I certainly admire your work and your philanthropic activities. It's a pleasure to have you here, and I'm sure I'll call on you again. Keep that calendar handy. We'll do this again sometime. And since you've given your contact information, I'm glad to give mine, Bill Lampton, the Biz Communication Guy. So logically, my website is bizcommunicationguy.com. I invite you to go there, check my services for corporations and leaders. Contact me. Let's talk about your communication problems and challenges and how I can assist you with them. Again, thanks so much to Brad Bonomo for being with us as our very stimulating and informative guest today. Thanks to those of you who have joined us on YouTube and on the podcast on iTunes. I'm Bill Lampton, the Biz Communication Guy, inviting you to be with us again for another episode of the Biz Communication Show.